Yeah, I'm Coach Eric Keller, Director of Wrestling at Wartburg. I've been at Wartburg for 24 years. Um, Director of Wrestling for the last three. We just added women's wrestling a few years ago, and so work with both programs. I'm the head men's coach, and so wrestled my career at University of Northern Iowa and coached there for a year, and I've been at Wartburg ever since.
Nice. Well, so speaking of that, the first question I have for you is during your time as a collegiate wrestler here at UNI, do you feel like student athlete mental health was as predominant as it is nowadays or like as talked about as it is now?
I mean, I'm gonna probably age myself a little bit, but I don't know that I'd ever even actually heard the word mental health in college. And so, I mean, there was work done as far as mental training, as far as how you thought, visualizing, that type of thing, but never um that exact phrase, no. And ultimately, I think even back then, it was maybe not even on the radar, I think, of people that was maybe a topic or an area that people could battle with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely a more predominant topic just nowadays, especially because mental health as a whole is kind of a lot more talked about now. Um, but I'm just super interested in especially like the wrestling aspect of it. I feel like that kind of carries a little bit more weight when it comes to mental health, especially because it's like a your weight matters. And so you have to be like cutting weight, making sure you're in your class. And I feel like that is such a worrying about your weight is such a topic in itself when it comes to regular mental health. So if you just want to kind of talk about a little bit, if you've ever like seen any of your guys or like had an experience yourself where you felt like specifically like the cutting weight portion or just any portion of wrestling, you like felt that within your sport.
I think wrestling as a whole, I mean, it's such a unique sport in terms of it's so individualized,
Mhm.
and you're out there wrestling by yourself. There's no teammate, there's no
Mhm.
passing the ball there. It's on you,
Mhm.
and so there's that element alone. And then you throw in what you were referring to, the weight factor, which the weight thing, there's a lot of different aspects to it, but one, just body, I mean, how people view their bodies, how they that whole side of it, perception wise, but also just the weight management side of it, and how you perform, because there's no shortcut in doing your weight, and I think it's one of those things that you see it in wrestling competitions where a lot of the maybe average fans don't realize, they're, their minds are like, oh, why isn't that guy in shape? Or why is that guy getting so tired? It's halfway through the season. And, people that really know the sport know, oh, they probably had a bad weight cut. They probably didn't, for whatever reason, didn't manage their weight right that week, or didn't come off, or, there's a lot of reasons why guys have bad weight cuts, but that's typically what you see when a guy just falls apart out
Mhm.
there wrestling. It's because of the weight cut, and so, I think there's also that part of it that's in the back of guys' head while they're competing. They're always worried, like, am I going to hit the wall? Will I hit the wall? And for us, we spend a lot of time just talking about, it should be down to a science by now. You should have all of this down, where every single week, you know exactly where your weight is at coming in. You know exactly what you're losing throughout the week. You know how you're going to feel. You know what you're putting back in your body. There is a science to it, and it's probably a part of the sport that most average fans or people don't get, and so you have that aspect too, that mentally takes a toll. And then you're, even if you are managing your weight right, um how you feel throughout the week. I don't care who you are. You miss a meal, or you don't get fueled as much as you'd like, you get a little ornery. I mean, that's all of us, right? Like, and so then you throw in on top of it, maybe they got a busy week, they have a whole bunch of tests, or they're fighting with their girlfriend, or I mean, there's just so many different layers to going through managing a week, and having guys perform at their best. And so for us as coaches in our program, our goal is to make sure that we have a true loving relationship with our guys, open communication. Our doors always open, our phones are always on, and that way, you know whether it's something little going on in their life, it's something major going on, we're number one, we're able to pick up on it, just body language or how they're talking or just how they're carrying themselves.
Mhm.
But also that they feel comfortable where they can come in and sit down in the office and have a conversation and talk about what's going on um, and understand that that's what we're here for. We're here to support them. We're here to help them. We're here to help in every area because there's a lot that goes into putting your foot on that line on a Friday night and being at your best.
Mhm. Yeah, that kind of leads me into my next question. I was about to ask you, like kind of how you are there for your guys, but I'm just interested in, I know it's kind of your prime time. Nationals is coming up in a little over a month. And do you feel like now more than ever, you notice more pressure within your guys, or you notice more of them are kind of like needing to talk to you, or like even if they don't, like, do you notice more of a spike in this time of season, or is it just kind of overall, like the whole season, kind of like in waves?
It kind of goes in waves. And I think a little bit of that's kind of just what's going on in their lives. A lot of it, but I mean, hopefully you've established those relationships by now. I mean, we're into February, and so, hopefully by now the guys know who they can talk to. It doesn't have to be me. I mean, we have a whole bunch of coaches on staff, and sometimes it's more based on who they work with weight wise. That's their person that they open up to. Doesn't have to be. It's sometimes it's who they mesh with, who they vibe with. And so as long as they have someone that they can go and just unload and talk to. But you will see it a little bit as the you get down the stretch and things start to ramp up and it's one of those things that we continue to talk about. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to have these, maybe extra nerves. And that's more than anything, that's when we want you to come have these conversations so we can remind you that you're prepared, remind you, give you perspective that dude, you should be confident. You've done everything right. There's a level of confidence that comes with preparation and reminding them of that. And so that's when it's most important that they do know they should come talk to us so we can help remind them and put things in perspective for them. But it does go in waves, and there's a certain level of maybe anxiety that comes with postseason. Um, but it's helping them remember that anxiety, it just means it's important to you, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing that this is turning it from maybe a negative to a positive in terms of like, man, that's excitement. You're fired up for the end. You're excited up for what's coming, and so maybe helping them get that spin on how they should be viewing it and how they should feel.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like wrestling, especially, is a very disciplined sport, and it's something that you should be really proud of, like growing up as a wrestler or being a wrestler. But do you ever notice, like, do your guys ever feel like they have to be like tough and like feel this pressure and not be able to like show that they're maybe struggling? I don't know. Sometimes I feel like guys like that, especially wrestlers, feel like they have to be tough and can't like talk about these things. So I'm just curious on your thoughts for that.
For sure, for sure. Well, I think a little bit of that's the persona of wrestlers, or the sport. And I would say that I think that probably is as a general rule of thumb, but I would certainly hope in our program guys don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Because that's not how we operate, that's not how we roll. And we want guys to be them, and I think if you watch our guys compete, everybody you see a little bit of who they are, how they compete, and it's a little bit different for every guy. And that's something that we encourage because we want them to have that individuality and be who they are. Um, and it's also one of those things that for us as coaches, they're not fooling us.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
if a guy's trying to typically trick everybody or it's because he's scared inside, and it's something that as coaches we need to identify and find a way in to have that conversation because there's a lot of different ways to bring things up and get guys to open up, and they might not. The goal is they don't know why you're asking some of these questions to get them to start to open up, and then you can start to identify some of these things and hit on them. Where and sometimes it's maybe they're talking about things that, oh, man, I didn't realize that was weighing on me so much.
Hmm.
Yeah, man, and so figuring that out. And so again, it goes back to relationships,
Hmm.
and having them know that, dude, I care about you. I love you. whether you win or not, man, I'm gonna be here to hug you. You know, all I care is you go out there and fight your ass off and wrestle at the best of your God given ability. And you know, we're still gonna be here at the end of the day, regardless of what happens. And so, you know, hope you can alleviate some of that stress and some of that pressure when, you know, from us, it's not win or nothing, you know.
Yeah.
It's not that way, you know. And again, there's going to be outside pressure. There's going to be pressure that, I mean, it's Wartburg wrestling. You know,
Yeah.
we're expected to be great, and
Mhm.
so there's going to be some of that pressure that comes with it. There's going to be pressure that kids put on themselves. There's going to be pressure that certain parents put on kids. You know, I mean, every family is a little bit different.
Mhm.
You know, so there we know that. You know, we know there's going to be outside pressures, and how do we as coaches help combat that?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, the last thing that I have from you is any last thoughts you have, overall thoughts about athlete mental health, just really anything else you want to say or anything you want to ask me at all.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, one thing to talk about is, you know, you brought it up in the beginning, asking me if that was an area that was ever discussed when I was an athlete, you know, and I'll say that, you know, for sure, probably in the last 5 years, you know, it's elevated, you know, and you know, I think guys are maybe a little bit more in tune with their feelings and what's going on. And I think that a little bit of that's probably the awareness that's in our society now.
Mhm.
uh, but you know, I mean, I bet I spent, well, just like I told you in the beginning, before we were able to get on. You know, I mean, when in between classes, this place fills up, and that's what I want. I want these guys to know, come in, talk. You know, and sometimes you can just tell they're coming in just because they need a little reassurance.
Mhm.
They just need a little, you know, and that's fine. That's what we want, you know. But you know, my job, I'll just tell you, like in the last 5 years, it's really changed, you
Mhm.
know, and going into the wrestling room and working on technique and X's and O's is a real small portion of what I do. I mean,
Yeah.
the majority of my time is spent helping these guys believe,
Mhm.
um, overcome adversity, you know, all the really important life lessons. But, you know, it used to be a lot of those conversations happened in the wrestling room, you know, when we were done with practice or throughout practice. Now most of them are in here in this office throughout the day, you know,
Yeah.
and um, you know, I kid a little bit, but I mean, I feel like my job's 75% psychologist at this point, you know, I mean, because that's a lot of it, you know, helping these guys overcome things, but also believe, you know, I mean, the self-doubt and self, um, I don't know. I mean, it really is self-doubt for a lot of guys, you know, and in helping all of them overcome that, you know, and that is a life thing. And you know, when I meet with recruits and I talk to parents that this is a life-changing program, I'm not putting that lightly. I mean it because, you know, if you can change how you think and how you see things and how you deal with your own mind and how you overcome your own thoughts and your self-talk and your belief, it's going to change how you operate and do everything in your life. And so that's why it is so important.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me again today. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the insight from you. I really
Absolutely.
was interested in talking to you, especially like I said with wrestling. I feel like it's a whole different kind of ball game when it comes to this kind of stuff.